The first thing divorce took from me wasn't my marriage. It was orientation. People talk about heartbreak like an emotional event, loud, dramatic, cinematic. But what I remember most is something quieter, a strange mental fog where even simple decisions felt oddly complex. Where do you go when the life you built is suddenly no longer yours? My ex-husband handled the separation with a precision that, in hindsight, felt almost administrative. Assets divided, accounts closed, responsibilities clarified. Efficiency has a way of feeling cruel when you're on the receiving end of it. By the time the paperwork settled, I was left with a suitcase, a temporary place to stay, and the deeply unfamiliar sensation of financial fragility. Not poverty, but exposure. There's a particular discomfort in realizing how much of your adult stability was structurally dependent on someone else. For weeks, I operated inside a narrow tunnel of practicality. Budgeting, calculating, reducing life into numbers and timelines. Until the card resurfaced, it had lived quietly at the bottom of an old drawer for years. A plain, unremarkable bank card my father had given me long ago. "Just keep it," he'd said, not ceremonially, not mysteriously, just casually, in the way parents sometimes offer safety nets without framing them as such. I had never used it, never needed to. But necessity alters the emotional meaning of forgotten objects. The bank branch sat on a busy street, its glass facade reflecting a city that suddenly felt far less forgiving than it once had. Inside, everything was polished neutrality, soft lighting, muted colors, institutional calm. I approached the counter with the subdued self, consciousness of someone acutely aware of their own instability. "I'd like to check this account," I said, sliding the card forward. The banker, a man whose expression carried the practiced attentiveness of customer-facing professionalism, typed with routine indifference. Then stopped. His posture shifted first. A subtle stiffening, then his eyes. Something flickered across his face too quickly for immediate interpretation. He stared at the screen. Looked at the card, then back at the screen. And that was when the atmosphere changed. "Ma'am?" he said, his voice losing its smooth cadence. There are tones that bypass logic entirely. This was one of them. "Ma'am, quickly look at this." Confusion arrived before concern. I leaned slightly over the counter, expecting some minor procedural issue, some technical irregularity. What I saw didn't register. Not at first. Because numbers, when sufficiently large, resist comprehension. My brain searched instinctively for error. Formatting mistake, system glitch, misplaced decimal. "There must be a problem," I said, not defensive, just certain. The banker didn't respond immediately. He was already calling someone. Quiet urgency replacing professional composure. Within minutes, the quiet counter interaction transformed into something unmistakably institutional. A manager appeared. Then another staff member. Voices lowered, screens angled, procedures activated. No one smiled. No one improvised. Authority, when real, rarely resembles drama. It looks procedural, structured, unambiguous. "Mom," the manager said carefully, guiding me toward a private office. The word private suddenly carried weight. Inside the enclosed space, the explanation unfolded with deliberate precision. The account was valid. The funds were legitimate. The deposits, accumulated quietly over decades, traced back to my father. Investments, holdings, assets I had never known existed, not hidden maliciously, simply unspoken. My father had never been a man of grand declarations, no theatrical gestures, no symbolic revelations. Just quiet, consistent behavior I had apparently never fully understood. "I don't understand," I whispered. Because the shock wasn't purely financial, it was relational. Identity level. We imagine we know our parents, until reality introduces revisions. He structured everything long-term, the manager explained. For stability, for security, for me. Memory began reorganizing itself in real time. Small comments, casual reassurances, conversations I had dismissed as ordinary parental concern, suddenly reframed as something far more intentional. Leaving the bank that day felt surreal in ways difficult to articulate. Externally, nothing had changed. Same city, same life circumstances, same fractured emotional landscape of post-divorce existence. And yet, everything felt different. Because financial security, I realized, doesn't just alter lifestyle. It alters posture, breathing, the subtle psychological geometry of how you occupy space in the world. But the most disorienting shift wasn't wealth. It was perception. Of my father, of my past, of myself. For years, I had quietly carried a narrative I hadn't even known I was carrying. That my stability had been borrowed, contingent, fragile. That I had somehow been less structurally secure than others. Now, confronted with evidence to the contrary, something deeper shifted. Not triumph, not relief, but recalibration. Because inheritance isn't just about money. Sometimes, it's about discovering you were never as unprotected as you believed. And realizing how profoundly that belief had shaped your sense of self.